Hello everybody and welcome back, and in this tutorial we will cover something called lists. Now basically lists is, as it says, it can be used to store, for example, multiple values of a number or a string. So let's say you, for example, wanted to store 3 different numbers into one variable. You would do that using lists. So you would specify all those 3 numbers in a list brackets divided by commas. We already saw an example of creating a list in the previous videos, but right now let's see what we can do with lists and how to create them. So let's open up our Python interpreter. So just type here Python, and right now what you want to do is basically, let's first of all create a string list. So a string list is basically a list containing words. There is not really any special specification for that. You just want to type here string list, or basically name it anything you want. I will just name it string list equals then these kind of brackets, and then what you need to specify here is basically just the strings that you want to put in the list. So let's say we put right here hello, comma, then world, comma, then open apostrophe once again. So what, closed apostrophe, open apostrophe, what is happening? And then we close the brackets. So right now we specified a list. So let's print it out, string list. And you can see the values of our string list, which is hello world, what is happening. So let's see what we can do with lists. For example, you can select each part of the list or each value of the list by specifying its number. So if you, for example, specified string list and then in brackets 1, so just like this, string list, don't make space between these two, you just type here these brackets and then 1, it will print out the second version or the second word in our list, which is world. Now you might be asking, why doesn't print the second word in our list if we specified 1 in the brackets? Well, basically this is counted as the 0 word. It starts counting from 0. So this is 0, this is 1, this is 2, this is 3, and this is 4. That's why we got the word world once we specified the 1 in our brackets. If we, for example, specified 0, we would get the hello word in our list. So you can specify that. You can also specify it, for example, 1 and then 2 dots, which will specify all the words from 1 to the end. These 2 dots represent the end of the list. As we can see, we have right now world, what is happening. There is nowhere to see hello, since hello is before 1. If you specified 3 and then 2 dots, it will print out everything from the third word, which in our case is. So it prints out just is happening. You can also do it the other way around, so you can just type first the 2 dots and then after that 3, which will specify or which will print out all the words before the third word. So we will only get hello world, what, and we will not be printing out what is happening after that. So that is another string or list manipulation you can use. This can also be applied for strings. So for example, let's just select a string to be hello, and then if you just type here string 1, you will get the letter E. If you just type here string and then 1 and then until the end, which is with these 2 dots right here, you will get hello right now, since we only specified all the letters after the first one, including the first one. So H as a number 0 letter will not be included in this. You can also do it, as I said, in the reverse way. So let's say until 2, we only get HE. So this can be implied both for strings and both for lists. Now this is important to remember, the syntax for this, since we will be using it also in our backdoor creation. So that is something you should know. But right now let's get back to the list. So let me clear the screen right a little bit. So import OS, system, clear. And right now let us find the command of specification of our string list. So here it is. We specify it once again. And let's see, for example, how we can remove a certain letter from the, or not letter, a certain string from our list. You can do that with using this. So string list, we specify the name of our list, and then dot remove, and then open normal brackets, and then between the double quotes we specify the word that we want to remove. So let's say we want to remove the world, and we press here enter, and if you just type here string list once again, so string list, you will see right now our list doesn't have world in it. We only have hello, what is happening right now. We do not have the world in our list. So that is how you can remove it. And right now, if you specify string list of 1, you will no longer get the world as a word, since right now the first word, which is, since it's counted from 0, is what and not world anymore. So that is another thing you should know. Now, for example, if you want to append something to the list, you can use the .append command and then the name or the string that you want to append to, but be aware that this will only add the word or your string to the end of the list. So if we wanted to add world once again, so string underscore list, which is the name, .append, open brackets, close brackets, and then 2 double quotes, and here we want to add world. We press enter, but right now if we just type here string list once again, you will see that right now it says hello, what is happening world. The world is no longer in the second position in our list, it is at the last position in our list. So .append is used once you want to actually add a string to the end of the list. Now, in order to remove a string from the end of the list, you can use .pop, which basically just pops or removes the last word in the list. So string list .pop, and then open brackets right here. You do not need to specify anything, basically, since it will remove the last string from the list. You just press here enter, and it will pop up the world string. So string list once again, and we no longer have the world string in it. We popped it up with the .pop function. Now, function is also something that we will have to cover, since we will be making our own functions in our program. So that is something that we will do in the next video. Functions are very important, especially once you code bigger programs. They are useful for us to actually navigate better through our code and to actually shorten our code a little bit. Once you use a function, you can only call it with 1 line, and you do not need to rewrite it 10 times in order to perform the same tasks for something. So that would be about it for the lists in this tutorial. As I said, in the next one we will be covering functions, so I hope I see you there, and take care. Bye. Hello everybody, and welcome back to the Python basics. Now, right now we covered most of the things, but we still do have a few things left, such as functions in this video. So right now I will show you how you can create simple functions in order to automate some of the processes. Now you can create functions for basically anything, such as printing something, adding something, calculating something, or basically anything you want. Now right now we will use some of the simple functions, but let's actually try to implement a function on a program that we already coded before. So let me just find it. If I just type here ls python1.py, let me find it. It is not that one, it is this one. So let's actually use a function which will actually automate this process. So nano python2.py. Right now we can actually put this in the function, and we can call that function with a simple line. So first of all, how do we actually declare a function? You declare a function with basically 3 letters, which is def, and then the name of the function itself. So what we want to do is, after this, press here tab, so we can declare a function right here, since this part of the code will be going in our function. So every time we want to use it, we only specify the name of the function and then the number in brackets, and we will be able to perform all of this with just that. So let's start off by actually declaring our function. So as I said, we need to type here def, which declares a function, and then right now we want to type the name of our function. So that would be the you can name it basically anything you want. Let's name it activity or something like that. It doesn't even matter. As we can see, the name of the function itself is different colors, so that's also how you know that you are correctly using syntax. And in the brackets you can put something, you don't have to. Basically in our function we must put something, so this function can have a use of it, and we will put basically any number. Now you might be asking, we needn't declare any number anywhere. Well, this is something that you will provide to this function later on. You do not need to declare this. This is not any variable. What you will declare is this variable right here afterwards. So it will basically use this variable throughout the function itself. So if you just type here any number, you will need to change all of this as well. So any number and this to any number. And also the next thing you want to do is tab all of this one time. So everything we typed, just tab it so it belongs to the function. And right now we basically finished creating our own function. So what this will do is once we call it with any number in the brackets, it will perform this task right here for any number. So we asked for number input, and right now in order to call that function we call it like this. So activity, which is the name of our function, and then we specify the number we want to perform this task on, which in our case is the user input number, which is under the label number. So we just specify here number, and that's basically it. This is the entire function written for a certain number. So let's actually recap what this will do. So we named it, we declared it, we also put something in it, so it only takes one argument, which is any number in our case. You could have named it anything basically, but you would have to change all of this as well to match the name of this in the brackets. So after that we actually just reuse the code from the previous video. So this is just to check if number is 0, positive or negative. And basically after that we called that function on our user input number. So let's see how that will work. So Control O to save, Control X to exit, and let's run Python 2 once again. Enter any number 3, given number is positive. So enter any number 0, given number is 0, and -5 or -3, given number is negative. So you can see that this function does work. We just called it with this. And you can call it basically with anything you want. You can call it right here, activity basically of 3, activity of -3, and activity of 0. And let's delete this so it doesn't ask for this. We can also put this under a hash. That is also a useful thing to know. So basically a hashtag will perform, or will actually not read as a code everything that comes after the hashtag. It will put it as a comment. So everything after this will not be executed by Python. So right now we only have a function, and I basically just written here 3 numbers that will perform all of this on them. So first one will be positive, and the second one will be negative, and the third one will be 0. So let's actually see how that works. So Control O to save, Control X to exit, and then we run the program once again. As we can see, given number is positive, given number is negative, given number is 0. Let me just add the N right here, since it doesn't put it. So given, and let's save this once again. So that is a simple use of a function. Now let's actually make another function that will actually do something with the strings. So we did something with numbers, let's actually do something that will include strings as well. So let's nano python5.py. Let's add the path to our Python folder. Right now let's first of all take an input of a string. So we want to type here string. We will put it in a variable, we will name it like that. So raw input, in order to take the input from a user, and basically type any string you want. And right now, basically, the user will get this input to specify any string it wants, and right now, let's see what we can do with that. Let's actually try to reverse that sentence or any string that the user inputs. So let's do that. We will be reversing everything a user inputs. So we make a function for that. Of course, we will not be doing it without a function, since this is a video for functions. Define, and we can call it anything we want. So let's call it reverse string, which is a little bit long name, but it doesn't matter. So let's call it reverse underscore string, so it looks a little bit better. And then here we specify, or we name it anything we want, so any string. As in the previous video, we can name it anything you want right here, but make sure that this any string you use in the rest of your function code. So we tab right now in order to perform the next code for our function, and the only thing we want to do is use this simple Python print statement. So print any string, then open these brackets, then 2 times type these 2 dots, and then -1. This right here will basically reverse anything they type. It will print us everything in reverse order. So this is the entire function. Basically just with this simple print statement we can do that, and all that we have to do right now is call the reverse string. Reverse underscore string, and we call it on our user input string, so which is called string. So we Control O, enter. Now basically this might be a little bit confusing to you if you are an ultimate beginner, but make sure to actually go around and check some other things as well for Python, since it will really make you better understand what we will be doing later on. So this is just something basic that you need to know in order to be able to follow later on what we will be doing. So just wanted to say that. So let's close this right now. We saved it. We ls in order to make our Python 5 an executable, and right now we run Python 5. It will say type any string you want. We type here, for example, I don't know, bird, and we can see that it actually prints us the reverse order of the word bird. Let's try something else. So hello world, we can see it reversed all of that, so even 2 words can work. So hello world right here, and that is basically a simple use of a function that actually does something with the strings. So let's actually do another function that will include lists, for example. So let's use the same file, so we will just delete our previous code right here, so we don't create a new file for this. It doesn't really matter. This is a simple code anyway. And let's actually first of all create a list. So numbers, number list equals, and then we specify 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So this is our list containing these 5 numbers. Now let's actually create a function that will, for example, print if the number is odd or even. Or even better, let us actually try to write a function that will print the number of odd numbers in the list and the number of even numbers in the list. So let's call it def, for example, odd underscore even, doesn't even matter. And what we want to specify right here is any list. So we will just call it list, since it doesn't really matter. You can call it any list you want, but make sure to use this name in the brackets in the rest of the function code. Then we specify 2 local variables, which is count even numbers, and when we set that to 0, and also count odd numbers, and we will set that to 0 as well. So we set basically 2 variables. One of them will count our even numbers, and one of them will count our odd numbers. So right now, let us for first time use the for loop in our function. So for I, for example, in list. So for I in the list that we specified in our function, basically if, and then we open brackets, if the I module the 2 equals 0, then our number is basically even. So we want to add 1 to the count even numbers since we found one even number. So we can do that with count even numbers plus equals 1. This is basically the shorter version of equals count even numbers plus 1. So we can just type here plus equals 1, which will just add 1 to the previous value of even numbers. So, and then we want else. So else, oops, you can see right here, I forgot to specify 2 dots. So this code would get an error. So right now what we want to specify is else, and we can just do the same with odd numbers. So count odd numbers plus equals 1. So if the number isn't even, it will add 1 to the odd numbers. If the number is even, it will add 1 to the even numbers. So we can see how many even and how many odd numbers there are. And we can do that with basically a simple print statement at the end. So this will finish the loop for every number in the list. And right now we can print, for example, the number of even numbers is, then we specify the %d, we close the quotes, and then %count even numbers. And then we also do the same, so print the number of odd numbers is %d, and then %count odd numbers. So it is rather simple, as we can see right here. It will just print out the number of even and number of odd numbers, and all we have to do right now is call the function on our already pre-specified list right here. So odd even out of number list, so number underscore list. And let's see how this will work. So %x, we already have it specified as an executable, and right now we just type here python5.py. So the number of even numbers is 2 and the number of odd numbers is 3, which is correct. So that would be about it for the simple use of functions. This is something very useful, and this is something that we will use, so make sure to fully understand this. Look at some other tutorials if you want to, and make sure to actually understand everything that we do in this Python crash course, since it will be reported later on. So that would be about it for this tutorial. I will see you in the next one, and take care. Bye. Hello everybody, and welcome back to Python Basics tutorials. Now, we covered functions in the previous video. We also covered some of the loops, while loops, if loops, for statements, and all of that. We covered some of the Python basics such as variables, and we also covered some of the most basic programs that you can write with Python. But right now what we want to do is actually show you another thing that is in Python. Since Python is object-oriented languages, many of the code in, for example, big parts of codes are oriented in the classes. Now classes are used in order to keep some of the related things together. I'll show you the most simple version of classes, so you can actually get a brief understanding of what they actually are. So let us get right into it. So let's open up our Python interpreter, and in order to actually set a class, you just use the name class and then the name of the class itself. So the name of the class, or let's type here class person. You specify the open brackets, and then you specify 2 dots in that. So after that you need to specify everything in this class. So basically most of the classes will have something called self. Now it might be a little bit hard for you to understand that, but you will need, or you won't need, but it is most likely going to, you are most likely going to start the classes with the function called init. Basically what this means is it will give all of the objects that are currently corresponded to this person class. So for now on, let's just add the self object and the name object. The name basically is something, is basically a name that this person will have. And the self object is the object that we are going to refer to in the class. So let me explain it a little bit better to you, so you can understand it. Basically what this will do is, if I just type here self.name equals name, this will put a self.name, a name variable in self.name variable. Now this is something that you will see a lot in the classes. This is basically just the syntax for the Python, so you will need to get used to it. If I just type here enter, you will see that right now we have the class person identified, and we have it right here in our Python interpreter. In order for you to use this class person, basically what you will need to do is actually just type here the name or any variable, so person1, or let's call it, let's call it person1, which is a variable, equals, and then we need to put the class that we want to put this person in. So class person1, we want to put him or her in the person class. And you can just type here person and press enter. You will need to specify all the arguments that we specified in our class, which in our case is only the name. So what we need to specify is the name. So let's call him John. So under the quotes, you just type here John, and you can press here enter. So now we have a person1, which is stored under the class person. So if you were to just type here person1, you would see okay, this is a memory object, so let me just show you it like this. So print, in order to print the person's name, you will need to print person1, which is our John, and then dot, and then we use the object that we created in our class, which is the name. So that is the only thing that we have in that class. So print person.name, and it will give you the John. So if you just type here person, not prison, but person2, and let's add that to the class as well, and let's call her Jane. So person Jane, and print person2.name, we would get the name Jane. And now both of these variables are corresponded to this class that we created. So that's what they mean by keeping the related stuff together with classes. Now this is the most simple use of it. Basically in this one we only had the variable name, which we gave to our objects, or basically to our variables person1 and person2. You can have multiple things, so let's see what we can do, but let's close this interpreter since it's better to code a real program. So nano python6.py, and we start off with the usual things, so path to the Python. And right now let's create a class which will store a name of a certain person, and which will also store an email of that person. So that would be pretty similar to what we did in the previous thing, but we also need to specify an email in our class. So let's call the class, for example, information. Let's call it like that, it doesn't even matter. And what we want to specify right there, we want to specify, or we actually want to leave it closed, so don't type here anything, just type here 2 dots after the brackets, and then press enter, and we create the simple function as before. So the fdef init function, we put the self right here, and we put the name and email, since that is what we want to actually have for every person we put in this class. What you want to do right after that, we want to do the same thing that we did before. So self.name equals name, and self.email equals email. This will store both name and email in our class, and right now all we have to do is basically just give or create a variable which will be corresponded to a person and put it in this class, while also obtaining the name and the email for that person. So let's do that right here. So let's call him Jack, or let's call him, alright, we can call him Jack, equals, and then we want to put him in a class. We put that with just specifying the name of our class, which is information, which is probably not that good of a name for this class, but it doesn't matter currently. And we open brackets right here, and what we want to do is just specify these two things. So the first thing would be name, as we specified firstly, and the second thing would be email. So right now we open quotes. First of all, we specify Jack as a name, we put comma right here, and then we specify the email. So let's say it's jack@gmail.com. And that would be about it for the specification of the Jack for this class. So all we have to do right now is, if you want to print the information for Jack, you can just type here print jack.name and print jack.email. So that's how you can use this. Basically it is really simple. Though everyone seems to understand this the hardest, I did too, but once you actually get used to this, this won't really present that much of a problem to you. Classes can be a little bit tricky sometimes, but they're not that hard to learn. So you just save this, so Ctrl-O to save, enter, and then Ctrl-X to exit. And right now let's chmod our Python 6 and run it. 6, whoops. And here we can see that when it prints out the name and email, we get the Jack and jack@gmail.com. So that would be everything for classes. Now you can also stack classes one under another, so class in a class in a class in a class, but that is the more advanced section. Basically we won't be doing that right now, and we also don't need it for our coding of backdoor, so there is really no point in doing that. You can also use certain parts of the class in a print statement. So let me just show you so you can see. So you can just type here print the user's name is, and then you just type here the closed quotes and then plus and then jack.name. So you can do it like that, it doesn't really matter. So the plus will just add the string of this to this string right here that is specified. So this will specify the user's name is Jack. You can do the same here as well. So the user's email is, and then plus this string. So we save this once again, and if we run it, you will see the user's name is Jack and the user's email is jack@gmail.com. So that is probably something else you didn't know, which is that you can stack two strings together. So this is one string, which is just the name, which in our case is Jack, and this is the second string. So it will just add this string to the end of this one, and it will print out the string as a single string. So that's something useful to know. So that would be about it for this tutorial, and in the next one I will show you how you can actually import libraries from the Python and also import your own libraries, which is also useful and which is something that we will do in order to create our programs. Basically you would be having to type all of the things from the very beginning if you don't include any libraries, but luckily we have some of the libraries that other people coded for us that we can use in our own programs with just a little bit of effort. So that would be about it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope I see you in the next one. Bye! Hello everybody and welcome back. And right now let us see how we can actually import some of the already used libraries that come in Python. So let me just close this. You might have noticed that sometimes in my Python interpreter I actually clear my screen. Now that is using the import function, which actually imports the OS library, which allows me to run a terminal commands in my program. So let me just show you how you can do that. So you can just type here anything, doesn't even matter, and then once you want to clear, for example, the screen, you can just import the OS, which is the library for the operating system, and then you can just use that or use the functions in that library to clear the screen. So one of them is os.system, which basically in this OS library uses a function called system, which in the bracket specifies the command that we want to run. So in my case, clear. And once I press that, you can see that it actually clears the screen. You can also run any other command, doesn't have to be clear, so you can just type here ls, and you can see that it will actually list all the files in my current system directory, or pardon me, in my current Python programs directory, which are these 6 programs. So this can be also useful for us. That is the simple use of importing a library. Now you can also do something like this. So let me just close this. Nano import.py. or let's actually call it, well no, let's leave it nano import.py. We actually type here user bin Python. Okay, so right now we can add a simple function which is called adding number 1 and number 2. Now this is just a function that will add two numbers and store it and print the result of those two numbers. So print num1 plus num2. And let's put it as an integer. So it should print the integer of these two numbers. So let's do it like this. Now basically you can just save this file. Just remember the name of the function, which is adding. You can save it, and we can see if I chmod it import.py, this program doesn't really do anything. It just runs the program, doesn't print out anything, and then closes the program. That is because we only have one function in it. But let's now run our normal program. So let's nano python7.py, user bin python, and let's import our import. Now that could be a problem since our import is called import, so let's actually rename it. I thought that would be a problem. We Control O, let's call it imprt, so we can actually differentiate it from the command import itself. So file name to write, yes, and then we close. So right now we have once again so we remove the import function.py, or pardon me, the import program.py, and when we chmod the import.py, and now we have our import.py with a simple adding function that we want to use in our other program, which is python7.py. So let us open python7.py and let us continue. So right here you can basically just do this. So a equals raw input, and we want the integer right here since we want to specify a number. So first number, this is something that we already covered, b equals integer, raw input, second number. And right now all we have to do is specify adding a comma b, and right now all we have to do is import. And then we can use the function that we specified in a different code. So cat python7.py, in order to see if everything is set correctly. We have our adding function from a different program. We have specified the user input for two numbers, and we imported our library, which is this program right here. So right now all we have to do is chmod the python7 to be an executable, and we can run python7. So 3 name adding is not defined. Yes, of course, I forgot. So right now, in order to use this function, you actually have to specify the name of the file itself. So you cannot just use adding, since adding would be a function that is defined in this program. We need to specify from which library or from which program we use this function. And in our case, we used it from this function. So we have to specify down here import.adding, which will refer to, so Python will know that it should look for this adding function in this library right here that we imported. So let me just delete this, and let's save this right now. And right now it should work. So python7 3 4, and we get 7 as a result. As we can see, we were able to use a function that we didn't use in our own program in order to execute a simple adding of two numbers. So that is how that is how importing works, and that is why it is so useful. So basically we can use any program that anyone before us coded, and we can use the functions from those programs in order to help us build our own program faster. Or basically, if someone already coded something that we need, we do not have to code it ourselves. We can just download that program and use it as we like. So that would be about it for the importing libraries. It is very simple. So you just find the library you want to import. You need to put it into the same directory as your program, and then you just type up at the beginning of the program import and then the name of the library. After that, you need to specify any function with just the name of the library, dot, and then the name of the function. So pretty simple. So that would be about it for this tutorial. In the next one, and probably the last one of Python Basics, we will cover the creation of files, which is something important. We will learn how we can create files, delete files, write to files, and read from files. So that would be about it for this tutorial, and I hope I see you in the next one. Bye! Hello everybody, and welcome back to another Python Basics tutorial. And as I said, in this tutorial right now, we will actually cover the creation of files. We will also learn how we can delete them, write to them, and read from them. Now, that is really important, especially if we want to implement, for example, in our backdoor a download and upload function. We want to be able to download all of the files from the victim's PC, and we also want to be able to download or to upload files to the victim PC. So, in order to get started for this, we will just create a simple txt file, since that is the most simple file to create. I mean, we create with the same command all types of files, but in order for you to understand it the best, we will use this one. So let us actually open up our Python interpreter. So right now, if we import the os command, which I showed in the previous video what that means, and we run the system function from the os library, and we ls and see which type of files we have right here, you will see that we do not have any file called test.txt. So let's say, for example, right now we want to create a file that will be called test.txt. Now we can do that with a single line command. So let's make a file object first. So the file object, in order to create it, you just type here file object underscore object, or this is basically the name of your file. You do not need to name it like this. You can name it anything you want, and after that you specify equals and then open. So basically this is the entire command. In the side of the open brackets, you need to specify the name of the file and what you want to do with the file. Now, what you want to do with the file I will cover just in a few moments, but first of all, let's actually open the file's name. So we open up the double quotes and we type here test.txt. Since we said we want to name that file like that, you can name it anything you want. Then you specify comma, and then again double quotes, and then W. W stands for write, so we will be able to write anything to a file from our Python program. With write you can actually, or let's first of all just start off with write, and I will show you what other mods you can also use. So there are W, R, and A. I will explain all of them in just a second, but first of all, let's just run this command first. So right now we created a file object in our Python programs directory. So right now, if we run the os.systemls command once again, you can see that right here we have a program, or not a program, we have a file called test.txt. Now that file is currently empty. We can check that with the same command, so just cat test.txt. You will see that there is nothing in the file, and right now let's say, for example, we want to write our password in that file, for example. So we would do that with specifying the same name of our file that we specified in the opening command. So we need to specify file object underscore object dot write, and then between these brackets under the double quotes we need to specify the string that we want to add to that file. So we can add anything. So let's say password is, for example, 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9, and we just write that to a file. And once again, if we run the os cat test.txt, it basically says nothing. Let me just check out why does it say that. Or basically, yeah, it should say nothing. As we can see right now, if I exit it and cat the test.txt, it will say password 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8. So good, I didn't know why I expected that to say actually something. Doesn't even matter. Let us just import the os once again. Let us actually now try to read from that file. You can't use that cat command. You can actually use file object.read in order to actually read that file. But right now, since I closed my interpreter, I actually have to open that file once again. Since I closed first my interpreter 10 seconds ago, right now reopened it, my Python interpreter doesn't really know what file object is. Now let me just show you right now. You can name it again anything you want, so file equals open, and as you can see right now I can open a file that already exists. So basically what this will do is it will check out if the file exists, and if it does, it will open it for us, and if the file doesn't exist, it will create a new file for us called the test.txt. But since in our case right now the file exists, and in that file we have the passwords, or a single password that we specified with .write command, right now it will open that file. And with that file, it will ask us in the next specification what do we want to do with it. Right now we want to specify R right here, which basically stands for read. So what we want to do, we want to read from that file. We want to read the contents of that file. So close the double quotes, close the brackets, and right now if you just type here file.read and then open the brackets and specify nothing in them, you will see that the content of our file is basically password and then these two dots and then 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9, which we specified in the previous open Python interpreter. So right now we know that we can open a file, we can write to it. So right now if you for example tried to write to it, you wouldn't be able to, since let's say 1 2 3, since you didn't open the file for writing, you only opened the file for reading. Now if you were to open the file for writing once again, so let me just show you, let's go to the back command and type write right here, you can also perform the, or basically since you did not open the file, since you reopen the file once again for writing, right now you cannot read from that file, since it says file not open for reading. But right now you can run this command that we tried before, which is file.write 1 2 3. If you just specify that, and right now if you open file once again for reading, which is just R, and you tried to read that file, you will see right now that file only has 1 2 3 in it. It doesn't have the file, or pardon me, the password, and then 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 in it. So it's good to understand that R stands for read, W stands for write, and A, which you can specify right here. So if you open for A+, it will actually allow you to append to that file. As you saw previously, once we opened the file to write to it, it actually first deleted all of the previous contents of that file and then written the 1 2 3 to it. It basically replaced the previous contents with this right here. Right now, let's say for example, if we wanted to add 4 5 6 to this without deleting the 1 2 3, we would have to open that file with A+. So you open that file, test.txt, and then you specify this A+ right here, and right now if you just type here file.write and you specify 4 5 6 and then you try to read from that file, oops, why does it say nothing? Right now it basically says nothing, so not really sure why that happens. Let me just close this once again and get the test.txt. Okay, so you have right now, not really sure why sometimes it shows and sometimes it doesn't. Probably because I opened it in the append mode, that's why the read didn't work. But right now we have the 1 2 3 4 5 6 and 4 5 6. Now we have twice the 4 5 6 since I actually typed it twice in order to check why I couldn't read. But you can see that it successfully appended these other numbers to our 1 2 3. So let's actually write a program. So nano, let's remove the test.txt so we can make a new test.txt. Now let's actually nano python 8.py. So right now standardly input our Python path, and right here we can, for example, open our file. So fn equals open, and let's say it's called, I don't know, let's call it again test.txt. we open it to write it, then we close this. Then after that we actually want to write to that file, so fn.write. We after that need to write what we want to write, so let's say we want hello world right here. We close that. And then we can actually, or let's actually leave it for a second just on this. So let's Ctrl-O, save, Ctrl-X to exit, chmod python 8.py, and then python 8 we run it. You will see nothing really happens, but if you compare this ls right here and this ls right here, you will see that right now we have test.txt file with the hello world. And let's say we want to make another program, but we will use the same one. We will just rewrite this one, and we want to read from a file. We wouldn't specify this right here. We would specify .read. So fn read. Basically not really sure if we have to print this. I don't think so. So let's save this. Now this will open this file right here, and it will print out all the contents that are currently in that file. Now in my case that is the hello world, so let's actually run that once again. Oops, so we have to add the print statement. Okay, doesn't matter. Let's add it, so print fn.read, and right now it should print the hello world to us. As we can see right here, it successfully printed the contents of a file in our output. So it's good to remember that in the W stands for write, read stands for, R stands for read, and A stands for append. So that's something you should know. It is very useful, and we will be using these commands in our backdoor making. So that's about it for this tutorial. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope I see you in the next one. Bye! Hello everybody, and welcome back, and this is the last part of our Python basics tutorial. Basically right now I just want to show you the try and except rule, which is used when you want to try something and it gives out an error. So in order for our program not to crash after that error, we run the try and except command. It will basically try, it is basically similar to the if else command, but right now this is the usage when something can give an error back. So the most simple program that I can write you that actually makes sense would be the division by 0. So let's see how we can actually make our program not crash once we divide by 0. So let's actually make a program, nano python 9.py. We run our path to the Python. Oops. And let me show you what I mean. So number 1, standard program, number 1 equals integer raw input. So we already covered all of this. Enter first number. We ask for first number. And then number 2, integer raw input. Enter second number. So we ask for 2 numbers, and then what we do basically is actually let's use a simple function. So def division num1 num2, and we want to actually just print out the num1, or let me just num1 divided by num2, which is used with this slash right here. So that's how you print numbers. So let me show you what I mean right now. So of course we have to call the function in order for this program to work. So the function, we want to use these 2 inputted numbers. If you don't know what functions are, make sure to check out the video where I explained it. And we want to specify the second number as well. So Ctrl-O to save, Ctrl-X to exit, chmod python 9, and we run python 9. And let's say 3 and 3, and we get the 3 divided by 3 equals 1. But what happens once I type 3 and then 0? You can see that we get a traceback error, and it says 0 division error, integer division or modulo by 0. So we can check out the error that we receive right here. We can try to copy it, and then we can try to change our file or our program to not give this error anymore. So python9.py, and right here we will add the try and except rule. So we made our function which will take two numbers as inputs, and right now what we want to do is basically just type here try, then two dots, and we want to try this, and in case that doesn't work, and it only won't work in case of the except, in case of the zero division, we will just type here except paste zero division error, and then we want to just type here what we want to do. So in our case we want to, for example, print can't divide by 0. And now let's see how this will work. So if we run once again, 3 works, but if we want 3 0, it will give us an output, or basically it will print us this string that says can't divide by 0. Now there is a huge difference between this right here and this right here. This closes the program properly, and this right here basically crashes the program, giving us the zero division error. So make sure to always add the try and except rule so you don't actually crash your own program with some statement. So that would be about it for the Python basics. In the next tutorials we will start creating our own backdoor. We covered some of the basics right here, such as function, classes, functions, basically while loops, true, false, if, else, for, and so on and so on. We basically covered almost everything we need in details. Well, not in details, we covered it as a basics, but we will not be doing much harder things in our backdoor coding, so don't be scared for that. That would be about it for the basics, and I hope I see you in the next lecture, where we will start off by planning our backdoor creation. So hope I see you there, and take care. Bye.